So there's this one thought that you've probably heard, like under promise and over deliver.
Yep.
Like I hear a lot in business, like, dude, if you just under promise them and you over deliver, then they're gonna be blown out the water. Well, it's like I get it and I understand it, but it's like most of the time they under promise and just regularly deliver. So it's
true.
like, how do you just say what you're gonna say? Like just promise and then over deliver. Like you don't got to set the bar low and then just be normal and then it seems real good.
Yeah.
So like I get the concept, but it's like we're not talking about necessarily that. We're talking about like being a man of your word, a woman of your word, and then going above and beyond even that. That's what sets you know any organization or any person apart. It's like man, there's just something about them. Well, they just carry a spirit of excellence.
Yeah.
Like they just are thinking, how can I bless this person or go above and beyond, right?
As you go out and you exceed expectation, I think the added benefit, I mean, it's such an important thing to build profit financially, relationally, all these things, because what happens is now you've got all the additional income that's coming from them creating raving fans, for them talking about it with other people, going back and being a repeat customer, just like in real estate. There's a million real estate agents out there. What is your client, your second and third purchase look like as far as clients? Like, do you have clients that have bought a second and third house from you? Because that has to do with exceeding expectation. If not, like, how much money are you losing by not having a customer come back and buy or sell their second house, right? And so, because people are going to buy and they move, I think 3 or 4 times in their life. So if you can service that, they are hungry and desiring to buy. Man, I get to call my guy again, opposed to like, let me just go back on the open market and find somebody else. So the confidence, you know, that income is big. They tell people about it. The referrals are big. But then when you're calling your new people, the new customers that are not a customer, the potential prospect, man, your confidence is so high. It's like, man, you just attract them into the business because you're like, dude, I go above and beyond. Like, there's nobody better that you can call or you could have service you than me. So that self-confidence is birthed out of the above and beyond, going further than the crowd. When you go further than the crowd, you just believe you deserve more than the crowd, and if your deserve more is higher, your income will be higher.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Leveled Up Life podcast. Again, Brandon and Courtney here with Paul McLean.
Good to be back, bro.
Every single week, trying our best to bring you value to your life, helping you level up in all the areas that matter most. Come on, you know them by now. Faith, family, fitness, finance, and franchise. Hope you're having an amazing summer so far. I know summer's been good to us.
Yeah.
Summer's been good to our family, and praying it's the same for you. And so today, let's jump right into it, man. I think this is one of those ones where if we can get this one, this is kind of, to me, it's almost like it's not necessarily the topic of excellence, but it's almost like excellence, right? So we want to talk about how to create a raving fan, or essentially you can say it like, how do you exceed expectations?
Yeah.
Not just in business, but in life, right? We can break these down into every single area. Like, how do you exceed expectations as a husband, as a father, as a friend, as a neighbor, as an owner, as a church, as whatever you're doing? Like, how do you go above and beyond to take care of your customer, your whatever it is? I think it's not talked about a lot, but it's one of those things where when you know, like, you had a good experience, or when you were taken care of, or when like your expectations were exceeded, you know, like, that was good.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm going to share that. So we're going to talk about how do you create that? What's the mindset? What's some practical things that we can do to help you live an over and above type life?
Yeah. I love it, dude. Wait, listen, man, I think for one that if you just go a little bit further, right? If you go a little bit further, that's what I found in business, really with anything. Most people sit back and think like, man, that person is just so blessed. Like, it just seems like everything goes their way. And the truth is, like, they might just be going 3 or 4% more in all these different areas, and that's given them a 500% return that shows up as like, wow, man, like, they're just their life can be expressed as abundantly better than most. And I think that this is what most people don't get. They miss out on. I know I did originally as I got into business, and even as a young father, a young spouse, that man, my job and desire is to go a little bit further
Yep.
than what's expected, or go further than expectation. And that's where, like, you're sowing seeds that when the fruit is produced, it's tenfold. So if you're on here like, man, I want a tenfold experience in summer, that's what we'll unpack right now. It's a big, big deal. So make sure to share this, like, and subscribe, and comment below as we go through this episode today. You might have a topic that's been put on your heart. You might have been sitting there over the last couple episodes and said, man, I really would hope that they would address this or talk about this. Or our desire is very simple. Like, we value you, we love you, we want to give back to you. And so make sure to put that comment below so we can address and talk about that topic. But let's get into exceeding expectation.
Yeah. There's this one thought that you've probably heard, like, under promise and over deliver.
Yep.
Like, I hear a lot in business, like, dude, if you just under promise them and you over deliver, then they're gonna be blown out of the water. Well, it's like, I get it and I understand it, but it's like, most of the time they under promise and just regularly deliver.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
true.
like, how do you just say what you're gonna say? Like, just promise and then over deliver. Like, you don't got to set the bar low and then just be normal and then it seems real good.
Yeah.
So, like, I get the concept, but it's like, we're not talking about necessarily that. We're talking about, like, being a man of your word, a woman of your word, and then going above and beyond even that. That's what sets you know any organization or any person apart. It's like, man, there's just something about them. Well, they just carry a spirit of excellence.
Yeah.
Like, they just are thinking, how can I bless this person or go above and beyond, right? So for me in the church world, it's this thought of, like, raving fans. How do you create people who
They can't hold it in. They want to tell
they
somebody
want to
about it.
tell everyone about it. So, like,
Yeah.
how do you create that? So for us, man, we're 3 years into our ministry. It's been like this rapid, God's grace is all over it. It's nothing that we've necessarily done. Like, without the grace of God and the wind of God, it wouldn't be what it is. But at the same time, there is very practical things that you can do to help reach people. So, like, for us, we always wanted to create a church service that people enjoyed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, like, when you think of church, depending on your expectation or experience or how you were raised, there's a certain perception of what church is. Right. And so for us, we're like, man, let's create an experience to where someone who doesn't believe, someone who's far from God, someone who hates church will just enjoy being here. Right. And then over time, as we preach the word of God, those seeds are being planted, and hopefully, right, through the word of God, through the love of God's people, then they'll fall in love with God and give their life to Christ. Like, that's the goal, right? But how do we get people talking about not necessarily the church, but about, like, what they felt while they were here? And so for us, we had that in mind. And so it's like, we try to do things to go above and beyond. So we're like, hey, most, and this is no shade at churches, right? But most church worship teams are like volunteers. And so typically with, like, a free service, you get mediocre results. So it's like, hey, how do we exceed people's expectation when it comes to the music? Well, let's get the best musicians we possibly can. So when they come in, people's, like, minds are blown how good it sounds.
Yeah.
Right. Let's do our best to bring the word of God, like the sermon, in a way that's extremely relatable, speaks to their situations, speaks the truth, and hey, maybe even it's a little bit funny. Right. So you're, like, exceeding, like, they came in for the word of God, but they got encouraged, they got blessed, they laughed,
Right.
they maybe cried. Like, you went above and beyond what was actually expected. And for me, it doesn't happen on accident. Like,
No.
these things they're very intentional, right? It's kind of like we were just talking a restaurant. So most people don't share a review of a mediocre restaurant.
Yeah.
They share a review of a terrible one or an amazing one. So it's like, you don't want your customers or your congregation or whatever your service is to just be satisfied. You want them to be, like, overly satisfied.
Right.
Because that's when they talk about it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, you don't want them to be silent, because silence doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's like, it was cool. Maybe I'll come back, maybe I won't. But it's like, if you can create a fan, is what we're calling them, then they're more likely to tell other people, and that's how whatever
just multiplies.
It just grows, and it just has a mind of its own, right? So,
yeah, it's like exponential growth takes place that little bit extra, dude. I love that.
Yeah.
And Brian, what you're saying, like, when I'm listening to him, I'm like, that's so good, because, like, you had the person that you were serving in mind the entire time when you designed it,
100%.
right? And so I think when you're in sales or business or whatever role you've got, right? If we're talking about like roles and goals, like the goal should be based off of how you want that customer, that client, and it could be your spouse. Like, how do you want your spouse to view your relationship, to view you? How do you want your clients that you're serving, the employees that you're working with? How can you exceed expectation with the employees? You're the employer. How do I exceed expectation? Or if you're an employee, how do I exceed expectations for an employer? So it goes into every kind of human interaction and relationship. This is applicable. And I think the first step, Brandon, is like what you just expressed and exemplified was like, I need to put the person in mind. What do they expect in this interaction? And it's always different. Like you expect something different from a restaurant than a resort, or your spouse than a friend. Like there's different expectations just simply based off of that relationship, right? And once you have them in mind, then you can kind of start to ask yourself some pointed questions like, okay, this is expectation. If I was in their shoes, what would be exceeding expectation? And it's sometimes it's not what you think, right? It's kind of like I don't necessarily rave about the Ritz-Carlton because the room is the best. Sometimes the room's not the best. Like I've been to better rooms, but and you're staying in a hotel for what? Typically the room. That's I need to sleep somewhere. I need to put my head somewhere. But it's the whole the whole feeling you get and the experience you get when you walk in where you're like, man, I've never had somebody walk me to the place that I've asked them where it's at. Like they and have a conversation and actually be thoroughly interested in me. Most of the time, they just say it's over there, right? But they've actually walked me to it. And so that's an expectation that's been exceeded. And sometimes it's just verbal, right? Like I know that going to Chick-fil-A where they say like, it's my pleasure to serve you. Like just like that, it's a different word choice than what we experience or what we expect based off of what our experience is. So even that sentence kind of exceeds expectation. And the sandwich might not even be the best, but we want to talk about it because the way we felt throughout it.
100%.
And so I think that's important to kind of sit back and say like, what's the expectation? What are they looking for? And then how can I exceed it in every single area?
So here's a good practical example that's really non-traditional, right? So we moved into our new neighborhood. And as I'm thinking about like typically when you would move into a new place or neighborhood, like you just move in and like you just hope one day to meet a neighbor or find a friend or is what it is. Like we lived in somewhere for 11 years almost, and I knew like 2 people, right? And I had like 58 neighbors. Just because that was just the culture of kind of the block, right? But this new neighborhood I moved in, like right away, like every neighbor came over to the house and like gave me their phone number. And then they threw us a block party, like welcome to the neighborhood. And I was like blown away by like, what the heck is like, man, this is different. Like this is above and beyond just like, I got the house, right? But it's like, my expectation was to hopefully find a friend, a neighbor, like someone my kids could bond with, like other neighborhood kids. But it's like the delivery of like being a good neighbor was over delivered upon. Like they threw us a block party, had a taco man out there, like the axe throwing truck and all that. It's like, dude, that's being intentional about not just having a good night out, but it's like, hey, how can we make this new family to the neighborhood feel welcome, right? And so it's like that's kind of the thought, the theme. Like how do you take care of your customer, your friend, your spouse, the person you're serving? How do you not just meet their expectation, but how do you put yourself in their shoes and then go above and beyond and deliver to them a service that they're not even thinking about?
Hey, the funny thing is we were golfing, right? Like last week, you're like telling Frank, Daryl, like, dude, there's a house available in this neighborhood.
Dude, I know.
Like you're selling
the neighborhood.
You're selling the neighborhood now, right? And
you're not even thinking about it.
Because it's like that. You just feel like you're obligated to tell people about it because it's like you've experienced something so great. I value you. I want you to experience something so great too. And see, it's so much more simpler than you think. Like that was a night that everybody enjoyed for one. I mean, I went there and I enjoyed it.
Right.
And but now it's like the whole rule of reciprocation. That's not the design of why you do it. But the truth is when you go above and beyond, like people feel like, man, obligated to like want to go out there and provide value to you because they're like, you've exceeded my expectation.
Yeah.
And you've got a raving fan about it. And I saw this in insurance when, I'd sit with clients and just little things that I would say at the end that would kind of go above and beyond what they expected. They expected me to go there, help them with whether it was life insurance, 401k rollovers, IRAs, retirement stuff. But it was up to me to figure out, like, how can I create a raving fan? And so at the end of it, I would say, like, were you happy with the job I did for you guys today? They'd say, yeah, thank you so much, man. It was my honor and privilege to serve you guys. And I just want you to know that, like, I'll be here to be your lifelong full service agent. Like, anything I could serve you and help you with, in fact, save my number. And if you guys could give my number to like 5 people that just so that they could have it, where if something happens to you, they know to call me. Because I don't know if you knew this, and it's kind of, it's alarming to talk about, but there's billions of dollars in unpaid death claims because something happens 10 years down the road and nobody knows who to call. And so I want to make sure that that doesn't happen, because this service is only as valuable as it being there when something happens, and it's during that time of need. And it's the most important thing you could ever have. When that loss of loved one happens, because it will, I want to make sure that I'm there with that check to help your family out. And so just let people know. And then I'd say, in fact, what's their name and number? I'm going to give them a call and give them my information and let them know that if anything happens, call me. Because if you've got 5 or 10 people that have the information, I'll always get a call.
Yep.
And I could just see in that moment, boom, I've exceeded expectation. Yep. And then sending them a letter afterwards, that was handwritten, that was signed, that we would send out, that 100%. Just kind of express the same thing. And then the crazy thing, Bran, is like a year after that, I started to call and do these reviews to go back out and review my clients' policies, to bring them back up to speed on what they had in place, to make them feel good about the decision they made in the first place, because you'll forget about it. And when I went in that door, I could see that I had a raving fan, because they never expected me to walk back through that door.
Right.
Because it just don't. Like,
right.
It's like, okay, I made my sale, I'm gone, right? And I'd go back out there and I'd go through their policy, and then I would start asking them other questions. They said, Paul, I really need something for my spouse, or I really need a permanent plan, or I really need something for my kids, and all of a sudden I would go out there and provide more service.
Yeah.
And there was a year where, it was like, over like $400,000 in income produced from reviews of policies. And it was just like sitting with friends. Yep. And providing them additional value and service. And what I realized is that, man, if you exceed expectation, man, that's where the fruit is produced at such a high level of multiplier that it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then they would talk about,
that's good.
I'd get referrals. Hey, this person called me. So expectations, when you can go above them, man, it's such a blessing.
Yeah, no, I think it's number one, having a genuine interest in the person you're serving.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a gimmick. You're not just trying to get referrals in some like smooth, slick way. You're like, no, I'm trying to serve you. I'm trying to go above and beyond. I don't have to, but that's a benefit that comes with it if one of your friends and family does want to get a policy or buy whatever you're selling. But it's like, hey, I'm doing it because I care about you. And that's
we'll do case in point. Before, it would be like, hey, who's 10 people that that could use the service that you just got?
Right.
And what it was, like, to them, that was like about me.
100%.
Like, can you give me something?
Can you help
now?
me? Yeah.
And instead of just saying, like, listen, there's a problem that nobody talks about. Most claims are unpaid because it happens 12 years later. Nobody knows who to call. So I'm going to address that. And then all of a sudden, now they're saying, reach out to this person, reach out to this person. Or when they call that person, they're saying, hey, take my agent's information down. By the way, you should call him because he did such a great job to service me.
100%. Yeah. It's a genuine care for, like, you're actually trying to provide them something of value. It's like when people come to the church, it's like it's their first time there. They don't necessarily expect to meet the pastor of a church that's our size, right? Or, like, I always tell people, hey, listen, I'm an open book. So if you have a question for me that pops up later in the week, do me a favor, take down my phone number, call me or text me.
Yeah.
And they're like, what the heck? Like, you would never expect that from, like, the dude that just spoke on stage.
Right.
But it's like just trying to go, and they never call, they never text. It's like very rarely. But it's like, and then when they leave, what are they thinking? They're thinking, wow, that guy's open. That guy gave me his real phone number. Like, you don't really see that, But that's what happens when they get asked, hey, what'd you think about that service? What do you think about that church? What do you think about that restaurant? What do you think about that guy? They're like, dude, I loved it. I got the guy's phone number.
Yeah.
You should come check it out. And that's what we're talking about, going above and beyond, doing the extra to really just take care of the people that you're called to serve. Like when we, like real estate agents, like what do you do above just the transaction? Like are you, because everyone could do that. everyone could serve a dish. Everyone could write up the paperwork. Everyone could fill out the
Yeah.
application. But it's like, what are you doing to set yourself apart? And I think it's just, and there's, dude, it's 2024. There's a million things you could do. Like you could have all this, you could have it all automated if you
Yeah.
want to. Like you could have the follow up, the birthdays, the cards, the letters, the gifts, whatever it is, all automated. And it's like figure it out
Yeah.
because most people are just doing the minimum to get by.
Mm-hmm.
I think in any industry, like dude, my industry, the commercial cleaning industry, like dude, if you just pick up the phone, like people are blown away. Like dude, I'll get calls and they're like, dude, you're the 19th person I've called and no one's answered the phone.
That's crazy, dude. I
Dude,
mean,
it's
most people don't realize
insane.
how easy it
It's
is.
insane, dude. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And they're like, can you please help us? I'm like, absolutely. And it's like, dude, how easy do you think I'm gonna go close that deal?
Right.
So I'm the only dude that showed up. Like today, I drove an hour and a half because the dude's like, dude, I couldn't get anyone out here. Like no one wants this business. So dude, I could charge him whatever I want.
Right.
It's like who else is gonna show up? But it's like obviously I'm gonna be fair and make sure it's a win-win. But it's like, man, if you just sometimes just pick up your phone and
Mm-hmm.
care about the customer, then you're gonna exceed people's expectation, and then you got a customer for life.
Yeah.
That guy knows other people within that industry. Who do you think he's gonna tell him about? The dude that picked up his phone and took care of him and drove an hour and a half to go see him.
Yeah.
You know?
And then, what I think too, Brand, is like it builds confidence too, because it's like now as a person, when I call a person, when I call a client, when I talk to my employee, like I believe that there's nobody better to serve that person than me. So my confidence level when I'm communicating to that individual is at such a high level, and people are going to buy from somebody that they like and trust,
Yep.
and that holds himself with confidence, right? No different than a doctor. If I'm going to go, I remember, I don't know if you remember this when I had I think Parker, she was probably like, maybe she was like 4 or 5, maybe she was 4, and then Payne was like 10. They were running on the couch, and they thought it was a good idea to put like a blanket over their heads so they couldn't see nothing. So they run into each other, smack, and they fall off. Parker smashes her head, smacks her head on the coffee table, gets 5
Mhm.
stitches. And I remember going to the doctor's office, and I'm like, what? He's like, what do you want to do, like suture or glue? I'm like, what do you want to do? Like, you went to school, right, for this? Like, can you make the decision? Like, he's like, well, it's kind of up to you. I was like, well, I kind of want it to be up to you,
Yeah, no.
given the fact that like you're the doctor here, man.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it just kind of depends. I said, well, great. I bet it does depend. Let's do this whole T-chart, pros and cons. Let's break it all off. We'll give weights to it, scales, and we'll come to a conclusion. But instantly, dude, I didn't like the guy.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have confidence. He could have said, listen, this is the situation here. This is what I suggest. Do you agree with that suggestion? Do you have any questions about it?
Right.
But I instantly didn't like him,
Mhm.
right? And he could have been a doctor that was top guy. And then I remember, because this happened again like 2 years later, another one of my kids ran into like one of the stair poles and split their head open. Then that doctor was confident. And he could have been 5 months in.
Right.
And it wouldn't have made any difference because my confidence was going to be gleaned from their confidence.
Yeah.
And so as you go out and you exceed expectation, I think the added benefit, I mean, it's such an important thing to build profit financially, relationally, all these things, because what happens is now you got all the additional income that's coming from them creating raving fans, from them talking about it with other people, going back and being a repeat customer, just like in real estate.
Yep.
There's a million real estate agents out there. What is your client, your second and third purchase look like as far as clients? Like, do you have clients that have bought a second and third house from you? Because that has to do with exceeding expectation. If not, like, how much money are you losing by not having a customer come back and buy or sell their second house, right? And so, because people are going to buy and they move, I think 3 or 4 times in their life. So if you can service that, they are hungry and desiring to, man, I get to call my guy again.
Yep.
Opposed to like, let me just go back on the open market and find somebody else. So the confidence, that income is big. They tell people about it. The referrals are big. But then when you're calling your new people, the new customers that are not a customer, the potential prospect, man, your confidence is so high. It's like, man, you just attract them into the business because you're like, dude, I go above and beyond. Like, there's nobody better that you can call or you could have service you than me. So that self-confidence is birthed out of the above and beyond, going further than the the crowd. When you go further than the crowd, you just believe you deserve more than the crowd. And if your deserve more is higher, your income
really
will be
good.
higher. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, your confidence comes from doing what you say you're going to do,
Yeah.
right? And then if you know you and you go above and beyond that, like your confidence is through the roof. But the same is true for the opposite.
Yeah.
Like your insecurity comes from you not doing the thing that you said you're going to do.
100%.
And most people
Yeah.
don't do or follow up on what they actually said they're going to do. Therefore, they don't deliver. Like
Yeah.
they're insecure. It's like that doctor. It's like, dude, make a decision. Like you
Yeah.
tell me you're the doctor. But most people don't see themselves in a position of like, hey, dude, there's no one else who could do this surgery, these stitches, sell you this insurance, service this property better than I could.
Simpler than you
And you
think.
only have that confidence from actually doing the thing that you said you're going to do, right? And over delivering
Yeah.
on that, and then creating Raven fans.
Dude, it's so much more simpler
100%.
than you think. So like,
Can you smile when you show up to work? Can you shake a hand? It's like
yeah,
those
that's
little
extra.
things, they all matter. Like at church, like people get out of their car, what do they have? They have someone there greeting them with a big sign that says like, "You look amazing today."
Yeah.
Like you don't have to do that, but it's like it's those little touches that just like, hey, how can we make sure that people are walking here who had a terrible week and just put a smile on their face for that 1 second? It's like those little things. It might not even be anything that the pastor says, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's like they felt like the presence of God through like God's people in there, and that was the one thing, that was the one little extra, the one going above and beyond the added expense to us, but then it created like a customer for life per se, right? So
I love it, dude.
yeah.
It's so good. And last thing I would want to say to kind of go above and beyond that I found to be very effective with showing the people that you're in relationship with, whether that's employees, employer, spouse, customers, anything like that, is being a good gift giver, right? And sometimes a gift is like a word that you say. Sometimes it's an actual practical gift that you give. And one of the things that we started to implement that made a massive difference was like just saying, okay, who are some people that are going to play important roles in my career, in my business? It could be vendors, it could be anybody like that, right? And getting to know the individual and then knowing what they value and then getting a gift that's like that means something to them, where they're like, wow, this person, man, they just showed how much they valued me. Like they understood that. And I mean, we would look at, we found out that somebody loved, the Cheesecake Factory, that was obsessed with it. That was at one of the insurance carriers. And so we sent them a great personal card that was very authentic because we valued them. I mean, they did a lot for us, a great relationship. And then we put the Cheesecake Factory in the note. We knew that also she was engaged, and we put in there like, this is, for maybe you take your fiance there. And we just had a whole thing in there. And man, you want to talk about like, do you think when we called that she returned our phone call? Do you think when we needed to like get something pushed through that she wasn't above and beyond to make sure it happened? Of course she did. Now, did we do it for that reason? No, we did it because we valued that person. But the benefits and the fruit that kind of comes alongside that is now you got somebody that's a Raven fan that wants to do something for you. And we did that with agents. Like if they hit a goal, we give them a red belt, and we'd have a whole thing talking about like a red belt mindset, like, to keep hungry, to stay champion mindset, like all these things, just to say that we valued you. We had one of the guys loved Marvel, and so we created a whole gift, customized Marvel shoes for him, Nike shoes.
That's cool.
And it just nobody, but we took the time to kind of figure out like, what do you value, get to know you on a personal level, and then get you that gift. And so now every time they look at that gift, man, they're like reminded that person values me. And so gift giving is important. One person that I would tell you guys to follow, that he is top notch at it, man. His name is John Rulin. So it's last name is Ruhlin. You can look him up on Instagram. And dude, he's known, no matter what gift he designs and gets somebody, they cry every time. He got Dabo Sweeney, the head coach of Clemson. So he was a Cutco guy. Like he sold knives, door to door before he got into what he was doing. And so he found out his story, found out about him, and then thought like, what would be a great gift? And so then Dabo Sweeney is known for like phenomenal quotes, right? Like he's a man of inspiration, right? And so he got him this $3,000 like iron chest box that had some significance to it as well. And then in it, he got a Cutco knife, and every Cutco knife had one of his like quotes on. Like one of them was like, eat an elephant one bite at a time.
That's cool.
And you could just see it's recorded as he's opening this, and he's just like overwhelmed with emotions, taking him back to man, when he was door to door Cutco knife, he starts talking about his stories about like how he, what he was doing in his little pitch and how he'd cut a penny with scissors. And I mean, it was a gift that was like so intentional
That's
that
good.
you couldn't sit back and be like, man, that person just, man, they value me. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And so I think the art of giving gifts is essential when it comes to, connecting with people and going above and beyond.
Really
Not
good.
just like chocolates, like
Yeah.
it's Christmas. Let's send them out C's candy. Okay. Yeah, maybe they like that, but they ain't remembering that, dude.
Right.
They're not like, man, that guy got me some chocolate covered caramel. like they're not thinking that.
Yeah.
But if you could just spend a little attention, and by the way, in the buildup of finding out how to customize a great gift, what does that require? It requires us to kind of have a conversation where I could get to know you, man. I could just say like, what are your hobbies? Like, dude, what are you into, man? What do you do on the weekends? And you start to ask some of those questions, and then
Get stuff for their kids.
yeah, dude, it's such a big deal. Or even know like, we would do. I would write down on the lead after I helped a client. If they had told me something, I'd find something specific and intentional that was taking place in the next like couple months or whatever was coming around the corner, right? And let's just say it was a kid that they were gonna play in the little kid World Series, right? The National World, whatever they call it. And I remember this one specifically, and I wrote that down, and it was gonna happen in like 30 days. And once the policy got approved, I give them a call. They were approved. Well, I do a 1-year review. I pull up that form. This is back in the day where I was writing it on hand. Now you just use a CRM.
Right.
You put a note. But when I called that person back and I was like, hey, by the way, man, how did your boy do in the World Series? Like, you want to talk about instant exceeded expectation. It took no effort.
Right.
I mean, would I have remembered that? Honestly, I would have never remembered that.
Right.
I mean, I had 20 clients a day. I mean, I wouldn't have remembered it.
Yeah.
But because I just had a system to put down a note, like this is taking place, and then I brought it back up, they're thinking like, my insurance guy,
Right.
remember that?
Right.
And now when they go talk to somebody else and somebody says, I need to get life insurance, guess who they're thinking about? They're thinking about you. So you want to become unforgettable.
That's good.
And rememberable.
Really
this is
good.
the stuff that matters.
Really good, dude. This is gonna make someone a lot of money. It's gonna help someone build that relationship. It's gonna help them create a friend for life, a business partner for life. It's gonna help them take it to the next level. It's gonna help you stand out above your competition. Just man, there's so much good stuff there. So
Go put it in practice. Hey,
Go do
plant the seeds so you can reap the harvest. Well, guys, hey, we love you. We value you. Let's go out there and make a massive week this week. Be strong, stay steadfast, and we'll talk to you soon. God bless you guys.